Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Alex Harshman here, your virtual wholesaler, and today we're going to be going over how to pull comps for your properties. Stay tuned. So for those who don't know, my name is Alex Harshman. I'm a real estate investor. I've been wholesaling for 2 years now, and I've done over 40 transactions, 40 deals, including flips, wholesales, double closes, you name it, virtually and locally, from states that I've never been to, and title companies, buyers, sellers that I've never met, and properties I've never seen. So if you want to figure out how to do stuff like that and to make money doing that while wholesaling, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, click the bell for the notifications of the latest videos that I have, and make sure you like and comment on the video of future videos that you'd like to see me do. So providing all this content for free, guys. A lot of these big dogs are charging top dollar for. I'm doing it for free. Take advantage of it and ask me any questions and I'll try to answer them. So without further ado, let's get into pulling comps. Why is it important to find comps and to pull comps for your subject property? It's important because, one, you want to make sure that you know what the value of the property is after it's been repaired, because typically, whether you even have a landlord or a flipper who's going to be buying your property from you as a wholesaler, you want to make sure that they know and also kind of understand where they're coming from, what that property is going to be worth after it's been fixed up. So that way they can determine not only how much equity they have if they're a landlord, but also how much money they're going to make in return as a flip. So what we're looking for is the after repair value, or the ARV. You're going to hear that a lot in the wholesaling industry. What's the ARV? Do you know what the ARV is on that property? ARV. So there you go. And the way we find that is through finding comps. More specifically, comps that have been fixed up by other flippers if possible, or the best 3 comps that you can find within a quarter to half-mile radius. Now it does change from location to location or market to market, and that's because if you're in the city and you're pulling comps, obviously your comps should be within a quarter mile, because you got a lot more densely populated area and there's a lot more properties to pull from. Whereas if you're in a rural area, you can. Sometimes I've gone as high as a mile out from the property because there's just not a whole lot of properties to compare it to. Same thing for the sale of the properties. So if you're pulling comparable properties, you want to look for properties that have sold in the last year or less. Ideally, again, if you're in the city, you want to be 6 months or less. Some places, they don't even like to pull more than 3 months. So, but for a rule of thumb, let's do it 12 months or less, because a year time is, it's not a lot of time to change prices, but it is in certain areas. So I like to go for 6 months or less, but I do pull for 12 months just for, for the sake of making an offer and to offer that to my buyers, because sometimes they don't care. So, but anyways, you want to do it within 12 months or less. And once you find that, you want to take your subject property and compare it to similar properties. Like, let's say you have a single family, you want to compare it to a single family. If you have a duplex, you want to compare it to a duplex. You have a triplex, you want to compare it to a triplex. You have a quadplex, you want to compare it to a quadplex, so on and so forth. However, we're only going to be discussing 4 units and below, only because anything over 4 units, you can start factoring in the income that the property is bringing in. There's a little bit more, dynamic to how the property value is determined. And that's where cap rate comes into. So if you ever hear somebody talk about cap rate on anything 4 units or less, to me personally, this was my opinion, I think it's completely unnecessary. Cap rate's using the market, the income that's coming in to determine a price. You can watch many videos on cap rate. I'll even go over it maybe in another video, but for now, we're just specifically talking about 4 units or less, because the ARV kind of applies to all those things. So now, with that being said, you want to compare the similar bed and baths to the subject property as well. So if you have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, I like to be within plus or minus 1 bedrooms, plus or minus 1 baths, So if you have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, you don't want to compare it to anything that's a 1-bedroom, a 5-bedroom, things like that. You want to ideally find something that's also a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. But if there's nothing else around that is exactly 3-bedroom, 2-bath, then what you want to do is you want to find the next best one. So 4 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, whatever it may be. Square footage plus or minus 200. I like to be within that range for finding comparable properties. If I have a 1,000 square foot house, I like to be at 800 to 1,200 square feet that I'm comparing it to. Same thing with the style of the house, if you can get that specific. So if you have a rancher, you want to compare it to other ranchers. If you have a Cape Cod, you want to compare it to other Cape Cods, but sometimes that's not the case. So, we're keeping it simple because I like the KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid, and we're going to do the best with what we got. So I spend a max of 30 minutes on my comps, sometimes a little bit more if it's in a rural area. And, but for the most part, you're going to want to have those just for your buyers and for your own research, but you can find a comp very, the value of the property very easy. So once you have 3 properties that are within a half-mile to quarter-mile radius, have sold in the last 12 months or less, that are within plus or minus 3, the bedrooms and baths, within 200 square feet of the square footage of the subject property, now you can pull those 3 best ones and you can average out those prices. But you also want to make sure that when you're pulling those prices, that you determine whether or not those properties were flipped. Because if you have one that sold for $100,000, and then also within your 3 comparables, you see that 2 other ones have sold for $300,000, chances are the one that sold for $100,000 was probably a cash deal, or maybe it was a foreclosure, things like that. So you don't want to compare your ARV price to the $100,000. You want to compare it to the $300,000. And if you have PropStream, this is where it's important to have a system in place, because PropStream, you can pull comps from the MLS, from public record, and you can actually dive deep and see the photos of the property most times. And you can also see if it was a flip or not. So very, very important, because whenever you're looking at the comps, you want to compare whether or not the area, let's say that the comps had granite countertops, very nice wood floors, that beautiful, beautiful kitchen, or was it just like a rental grade kitchen, or rental grade paint, or rental grade, amenities in the property. So that's very important, because if you're in, let's say, you can classify neighborhoods by A, B, C, or D neighborhoods, A obviously being the best, D being the worst. But if you're in a C class neighborhood and you're comparing it to the properties, obviously you want to make sure that they're not selling granite countertops in their flips, because you could overestimate your repair estimate in that aspect. So once you determine the condition of the comparable properties that you're comparing your subject property to, now you got a better idea of what the property's worth. So let's just say, for example, we're looking to buy our property for $100,000. We find that everything flipped in the area is worth $200,000. Right at our offer price, we're at 50% ARV, and we still got to determine the repair estimates and everything like that. But that's for another video as well. This is specifically for how to pull comps. I'll do a separate PropStream video on how to pull comparables. So if you're interested to see how PropStream works, I'll definitely do that. But if you don't have PropStream or you don't want to do it, I do have a link for a 7-day free trial in the description. If you don't want to do that, then you can also go to Zillow, Trulia, Redfin, Realtor.com, and you can pull the recently sold properties there as well. It's not as accurate, and I found it's a lot more difficult to find comparable properties as opposed to just using PropStream, but the option is there. So I hope that video helps you on pulling comps and kind of what criteria to look for. It's very simple, guys. Like I said, if you're overcomplicating it in your head, just stop right there and just say, okay, well, I need to find out if it's similar bedrooms, similar bathrooms, similar house size, square footage. Lot size does play a factor, as you get up in the acreage. But for those, who are looking in the city, it does and it doesn't have a whole lot of factors. So if you're comparing it, the properties have twice the lot size, obviously look at it, factor that into your price. And that's the same thing appraisers do. So they actually do plus or minus, you take away from the value of the property. So they'll compare your properties to other properties, and they'll say, they get real specific, right? We're going to keep it simple, but they get super specific, like appliances, how old the roof is compared to the number of garages attached to the property. So these are all things you got to consider in your head. You go, because you got to put yourself into your buyer's shoes, right? If you're trying to sell this to somebody, or somebody's trying to sell this to you, what are you going to look at whenever somebody says, "Oh, this property is worth $200,000," and they're comparing it to a property that has a 2-car garage, but this one doesn't have any garages and it has a lot smaller lot size, right? So you're not going to believe a word they say. You gotta kind of place yourself in their shoes and just take those things into consideration. But the biggest factors are the ones I mentioned to you. And to keep it simple, I just wanted you to go ahead and know that. And just play around. Just go around on Zillow and find a random property, and then make it your objective to find 3 comparable properties and come up with the ARV for it, and just have fun with it. That's what I did. Is I just took my addresses of families' houses that I knew, and I tried to figure out what their houses would be worth if they fixed it up. Again, y'all, I hope this video helps you. And if you have any other videos you want to see me talk about or do, just let me know in the comments section. It really does help me out when you subscribe. Give me that thumbs up so I know that I'm giving you some valuable information. I've got a lot of positive feedbacks on my other videos. So if you haven't checked those out, go ahead and check them out. I talk about virtually wholesaling locally, and just some tips and strategies to talk to sellers and get motivated sellers to sign contracts. And that's what it's all about. If you can do that, you can do any aspect of this business, I think. Controlling the phone call, everything. So without further ado, I'll see you guys in the next one. And again, don't forget to subscribe. It helps me out. Thank you.